And I see people joining us. Welcome. We're just a minute or two before noon, so we're going to just let folks come on in and get started, and we'll start in just a second. All right, well, it's noon, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Technologies to Enhance Effectiveness. It's part of a series of webinars put on by the task force related to hearing loss at work. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to just my name is Melissa Cruz, and I'm with HLLA. And I'm just going to run through some tech tips with you as we go. The webinar is being captioned. And to see captions, you're going to need to click on the CC icon and click show subtitles. You will be able to change the font size in the caption setting. Please use the chat for technical support issues only. Our team will also be sharing information and links here. You can also click on the Q&A icon to submit questions as we go through the webinar, and we will be answering questions. Your screen should be in side-by-side mode if you've joined by the computer. You can adjust the side-by-side view by hovering between the share screen and panelist view to slide to adjust to your desired view. If you've joined by mobile device or phone, your view may be slightly different, and you may have to scroll between the views to get to the desired one. And just a little disclaimer that HLA does not endorse any products or anything that's featured in this webinar. We are providing this webinar as an educational opportunity to learn about products and things that are out there that could be beneficial for hearing loss. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderator, Jill Hairbard. Jill will be leading the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Melissa. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us so much. We're glad that you're here and hope you will find this webinar very useful. We're going to talk about technology in the workplace for people with hearing loss. The Hearing Loss Association of America's mission is to open the world of communication to people with hearing loss through information, education, support, and advocacy. This includes in the workplace. Now, this webinar is hosted by the task force here, the HLA Task Force for Accessible Inclusive Employment. The full task force is shown on this side. We've got 9 really dedicated, amazing individuals that help us out with different webinars and other activities that we have during the year. And our goal is to help people with hearing loss, their employers and allies, towards more accessible and inclusive workplaces and employment opportunities. We're also looking towards increased career satisfaction and success in your careers. Please feel free to reach out to myself or any of the task force members if you have questions, comments, or suggestions. Next slide, please. Okay. My name is Jill Herbal, and I am the moderator for the webinar today. I'm a healthcare consulting actuary who primarily works with state Medicaid agencies. I'm also a managing partner of a consulting practice with over 200 employees. My hearing loss progressed from mild to profound over many years, and I'm now a cochlear implant recipient. I've been a member of HLA for over 20 years and on the task force for about a year now. Before I introduce the panelists, I wanted to thank you for the questions that you all submitted in advance. We'll try to address as many of those questions as possible. Reviewing the questions for me was a good reminder that there are many different disabilities and great diversity among those with hearing loss. There's also a huge variation in jobs and tasks and work context. So we cannot cover everybody's specific situation and needs today, but we hope to share information that will help as many attendees as possible. With that in mind, our focus today is on technology. We're not talking about the law, accommodation type of a thing. It's for adults, not for children. We are focused on hearing loss, and we're focused on work setting. So we will be sharing resources as we go. We've got a couple different slides that you'll see there as we go. And I'm hopeful that the examples that we're sharing today will be helpful for most attendees. But I will say that even though we are focused on adults in the workplace, there's a lot of what we'll be talking about that can be applicable to other situations, people with other disabilities, and non-work contexts as well. So we have about 300 people already joining us today. I'm very glad that you're here. Before we get started with the panelists and I introduce those, we wanted to take a few minutes to get to know all of you. And so we have a poll. So Melissa, can you start the poll with us, please? Okay, hopefully you can see the poll on your screen now. The first question that we have is, where do you work? And we've got 5 different choices there. If you could please select the one that suits your environment best, that would be great. Okay, and I can also see that the second question is there as well. And that is, which assistive technology devices do you find essential to your own inclusion and productivity on your job? Well, it looks like we have a wide variety in attendees today. Although in terms of where we work, office seems to be the most prevalent, but I'm sure that includes people that work from home and in office-like settings. And not surprisingly, I think that's where a lot of people work. School, educational, classroom settings, as well as hospitals and medical facilities. We've also had some attendees from there. So thank you for joining us. In terms of technology, hearing aids, cochlear implants, certainly it makes sense that those are some of the most essential of the tools that we have to help us perform and be included in productivity in the work. In captioning, which we are currently captioning this series, is really helpful. And we'll be talking more about that as we go along today. Okay, so with that, let me, go ahead, Dave. Well, let me go ahead and introduce our panelists so we can get on to the main content of our program today. Our first speaker will be Dr. David Baldridge. He is Professor of Management and Organizational Behavior at Oregon State University. He is a deafened cochlear implant user and chair of the task force that's sponsoring this webinar today. He has researched the workplace experiences of people with hearing loss for over 25 years. He's published more than 25 articles and book chapters and made over 100 conference and workshop presentations internationally. Our second presenter today will be Dave DeBellis. Dave is a practicing engineer with HP Incorporated. He works in the company's industrial printing division. He had sudden and profound hearing loss at age 55, and that threatened to derail his career. But with the help of a hearing aid and a cochlear implant, he's been able to continue to work effectively in his role. Dave is also a member of our task force. And finally, our third speaker will be Dr. Tina Childress. She's an educational audiologist in the mainstream and residential school settings. She's also a technology and social media aficionado, late deafened adult who is fluent in American Sign Language, and a bilateral cochlear implant recipient. With her unique perspective and passion for sharing information through social media, she's sought out international presenter and motivational speaker for families, adults, and professionals on a variety of topics. Her area of expertise includes hearing assistive technology, applications, cochlear implants, advocacy, and effective strategies for coping with hearing loss. So I think we have a great panel today, and I hope that you enjoy the different presentations and all the information that they're going to be sharing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Baldridge.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Again, my name is David Baldridge. I'm a professor at Oregon State University, and I am not like a super high-tech person. I am an applied psychologist by training. But I hope that my experiences as kind of a medium technology user will help a lot of people here. I will kind of sort us out, and Dave and Tina will go progressively deeper into different technologies. So with the polls, I was impressed by how much technology audience members are currently using, some of the same technologies that I find useful. So for context, I spend a lot of time teaching. That's kind of half of my job. And I spend a lot of time researching. That's another half of my job. For the classroom, I teach remotely as well as in person. And the remote teaching is an example of career or job crafting in order to kind of focus on my strengths and have things that are not such strengths kind of fall in the background. So when I teach online, it's really not evident to anyone that I have hearing loss. All the communication is via email or the equivalent chat boards and so forth. When I do teach in the classroom, I use captioning sometimes, but not always, and I'll talk about that more in a second. For meetings, which is another big part of my job, I use Zoom as much as possible because it combines captioning with being able to see speakers and being able to stream in via Bluetooth into my cochlear implants. So our main three questions for all the panelists today are our must-have technologies and technologies we're excited about for the future, emerging technologies. And then the last part are the resources that we use. And sometimes there are different resources that I suggest for people who are newer in their journey with hearing loss. So my own experience kind of shows different levels of hearing loss. So I first had acquired hearing loss in preschool or before, so way back. And my hearing changed very slowly over time. So mild, moderate, profound, total. Then about 20 years ago or 22 years ago, I got my first cochlear implant. And then a second one about 10 years later as it was covered by insurance. And with the cochlear implants, as their technology has changed, you think about how much a cell phone has changed in the past 20 years, right? From a giant brick that didn't work very well. Well, cochlear implants have been through that same evolution. So I feel like I'm kind of reversing that process from total to profound to mild to moderate. So in most situations now with my cochlear implants, I feel like I have a very mild hearing loss. In noisy situations, it's more, moderate to profound. And of course, if my batteries run out, then it's total, right? So I share that because I've had that whole experience of different levels of hearing loss. And then through my research, I've had in-depth interviews with dozens of people with hearing loss and surveyed thousands more people about their experiences with accommodation technology and career success. And part of that is using technology, but also engaging what I talked about with career and job crafting to make sure that you're using technology to supplement, but you're not overly dependent upon it. So you can make changes in your job to leverage your strengths and minimize the impact of your hearing loss. Okay, so for me, the different phases of my hearing loss and technology. So pre-cochlear implant, I had very powerful hearing aids that basically towards the end of that time allowed me to follow the pattern of speech and made it easier for me to speech read. But I couldn't just listen and understand what was being said. So at that point, I was very dependent on captioning, so CART reporting in the classroom and in meetings. I also used email and text messaging to use technology that everyone uses to aid my communication. Later, as I got my first cochlear implant, again, a series of changes, but big changes then were with the cochlear implants in time, that T-mic over my ear allowed me to use a telephone fairly well, much better than I could use it before. And at that point, different remote microphones are very important. So this is a Roger pen that you can point and zoom in on the person or whatever you're trying to hear. This is a more modern version of the same thing. And these are clip-on microphones. So for example, my wife with a soft voice in a restaurant wearing this on her shirt would allow me to hear her much, much better. So most recent generation of technology for me would be I upgraded to the advanced bionic Naida Marvel. And it has a couple of really great features, and that's just my product. So the other manufacturers have their own variations of these same things. But for advanced bionics, they have something called AutoSense, and AutoSense helps greatly in hearing and noise. So it focuses on what's in front of you in loud situations, and it tries to filter out and give you better quality sound. So for me personally, I don't use remote microphones as much anymore because the AutoSense just works so well. The other big revolution for me personally is the Bluetooth that's built in to the most recent cochlear implant processors. So I now stream directly from my iPhone, from my iPad, from my computer, it's what I'm doing right now, into my cochlear implants. And experiences vary, but for me, it's the highest quality sound I've had since probably early childhood. So I find when I watch a movie now on my iPad, I don't necessarily need the captioning. It's nice to have, but I don't rely on it as much anymore. So the Bluetooth streaming and the AutoSense are huge recent evolutions that have changed how I use my cochlear implants. Also, I rely more on AI captioning now because it's so fast and because it's now a secondary source of information. So as I am listening, as I am watching people's lips or faces on the screen, I can use that AI captioning because it is so fast. Emerging technologies, so like everyone else, I'm watching AI, dreading it sometimes as a teacher, but as a person with hearing loss, I think that it's going to help us a lot in the future. In particular with AI captioning continuing to improve, also the ability to use our cell phones not just individually but paired. And I think Tina may talk more about that. But our phones are these incredibly powerful computers that we can leverage more in the future. And the last I'll mention is glasses. So at the convention last year for HLA, I had a chance to try, the captioning glasses. And to be honest, right now, they're pretty clunky right now. But again, so is my cell phone, 15 years ago. So I'm hopeful at some point in the future we'll be able to read captioning fairly seamlessly on our glasses or whatever else. For resources, for me personally, the AldaCon and the HLA convention are places I go to every year in order to meet vendors, try technology, touch it, test it out. And most importantly, I've made friends there doing similar work that I can call upon when I need help with resources. So those are the things that I rely upon most, the conventions for meeting people and then staying in touch with those people that like technology more than I do. Last time I mentioned is for people who are new to hearing loss in the workplace, I always recommend JAN, the Job Accommodation Network, because their job is to help you and help your employer find the right accommodations for your situation. So you can suggest that your supervisor or HR contact them. You can do so yourself, and they'll help you through that process of navigating the legal elements as well as finding the right technology. I do think that sometimes they're a little behind in the most cutting edge technology. So that's what I rely on my friends for. So with that, I will turn it over to Dave DeBellis.
Thanks, David. Yeah, my name is Dave DeBellis, and I've been hearing impaired, severely hearing impaired now for about 10 years. But in truth, I've actually been hearing impaired most of my life. As a young child, I lost hearing in my left ear, but I was never really treated as disabled, and I never really acknowledged myself as disabled. I couldn't tell which direction sounds were coming from. I couldn't understand why everybody thought stereo was so great. And, I really had a hard time at parties and conferences and restaurants, but I thought, I wasn't really unique in this regard. It was like the old joke about, asking a fish, how's the water? And the fish asking back, what water? So, I really thought I was normal. But about 10 years ago, when I turned 55, that really changed suddenly. For reasons unknown, the hearing in my good right ear cut out suddenly and completely and didn't come back. So I went from what I considered normal to basically completely deaf in that period. And so this went on for about a half a year until I was able to get implanted with a cochlear device in my right ear. During that period of isolation, and it was really isolating, I continued to work. I relied on cart service that my employer, HP, provided, as well as email and instant messaging. But really what I relied on to a large extent was the awareness and the help of people that I worked with during that period. Now with the cochlear implant and also a hearing aid in my left ear, which turned out to have some residual hearing, I'm pretty much back to where I was before all this went down. I still have all the same difficulties that I did and that most of us on this webinar share. But even in the decade that I've relied on this absolutely wonderful technology, it's really advanced markedly. And so I'd like to share with you some of my experiences in this regard. But let me first describe the work environment that I function within. As an engineer, I spend the bulk of my time in a quiet office environment. And actually, here post-pandemic, it's actually got quieter just because at any given time, half the people aren't in the office but are working remotely. Our product is a large multi-million-dollar industrial printing presses that we sell to customers internationally. And a large part of my job is doing test and development work on these devices that are both dangerous and extremely loud when in operation. So much so that normal hearing people are compelled to wearing hearing protection around these devices when they're working with them. And I also periodically visit customer sites in various countries where besides just the noise, the challenge is understanding different languages and different accents. As far as the office is concerned, I'd say the changes wrought by the pandemic have actually been very beneficial. The large in-person meetings that were so problematic before are now kind of a rarity. Most of the meetings are conducted over Zoom or Teams, just like we're doing now. Having, as David mentioned, assistive devices that have integrated Bluetooth allows a direct audio tie-in via the computer and kind of avoiding a lot of the understanding losses that occur when you're dealing with microphones and speakers. Also, the meetings themselves have changed character. Where once there were lots of side conversations and people talking over each other. Now with remote meetings, that's much less of an issue because the format really does encourage only one person speaking at a time. And with the video, there's the added benefit of being able to see the person's facial expressions and be able to read their lips. And then, as David mentioned, also just the AI captioning capabilities have really been improving all the time. There's always going to be a delay. There's always going to be transcription errors. But as an aid to following what's going on in the meeting, it's really invaluable. And especially in my case, if that meeting involves overseas personnel, which it often does, where English is maybe a second or even a third language, it's very beneficial. Working around the presses was a huge problem at first. Think of the loudest meeting in the worst conditions you've ever experienced and multiply it by like 3. In this environment, the biggest benefit for me has been left-right side devices with integrated Bluetooth that can direct the focus in front. And this is so much of a benefit that, in fact, in a lot of cases, I'm at an advantage to my normal hearing colleagues because they have protective hearing devices on and can't really hear very well. And so that's been a real benefit for me in this kind of unique industrial environment. It's still the case, though, that even though the sound in front is very good, what's coming at you from the sides or from the rear is deliberately blocked out. And so in that case, I have to really tell everybody ahead of time that if you try to get my attention and I'm not directed completely at you, I'm probably not going to hear you. So once again, even though the technology is really good, it has its limitations, and you have to kind of bridge those limitations with the help of the people that you're working with. I rely on reading lips and facial expressions. I have to remind them of that. And also sometimes it just gets to be so contentious that I suggest that we go somewhere where it isn't quite as noisy. If the conversation really is important, demands that we hear everything that people are being said. I also think as far as technology goes in general, some of it is undeniably beneficial to our situation, but a lot of it also has limited value or not the same value depending on the situation and the person. And so since in many cases it's very expensive and also not covered by insurance, it's really important to try to gauge ahead of time whether it's going to be of benefit to you. And I found the best way to do this is to find and talk with people that actually have experience with the technology. And if possible, to arrange a free return trial to judge for yourself whether the price is, the benefit is worth the price asked. But that said, I'm very enthusiastic about the new technologies that are on the horizon. As I've already mentioned, the integrated Bluetooth and the Zoom Forward feature have been absolute game changers. And if your current assistive devices don't have these, I'd seriously consider upgrading to get them because they really have been fantastic. And as I think Dave mentioned, the Bluetooth technology is poised to get even better with something called Auracast. You can think of Auracast as the ability to directly tie your Bluetooth device into audio that's being broadcast in any kind of venue. And so just one example where this could be a game changer is in airports. When I go overseas to support customers and I'm at the gate, and the gate agent makes some announcement over a crappy intercom system with all kinds of noise going on, there's no way I'm going to be able to understand that. And I always have to ask the person standing next to me what was just said. Now with AuraCast, in that situation, you'll be able to get that announcement directly into your device and really improve your understanding. And I can see this same technology really having benefits in any kind of contentious environment, such as a large conference, large meetings, and also privately in like movie theaters, and just listening to your TV could be really nice. And the other emerging technology, of course, is one that everybody's been talking about, which is AI. And I think its capabilities for near real-time translation are already pretty good, rivaling CART, and they're going to get even better in the future. And of course, it's free. There's a lot of talk these days about the dangers of AI, but I think, for those of us with hearing loss, it will prove to be an unalloyed benefit. And so with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to our final speaker, Tina Childress.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. If you don't know who I am a late deaf adult, as mentioned in my bio. I am also active on various boards and committees. I'm not going to name them all, but I have a passion for helping people. And I think a lot of that stems from my background in audiology. And I say that audiology picked me because I had no idea that I would become deaf 9 months into my career. I had a rapidly progressive hearing loss and lost all my hearing in about 9 months, was functionally deaf for about 9 months, and then got my first cochlear implant in 2000, and I became bilateral in 2005. So I think, Professor Baldridge, when I think about your timing, I think we're about the same. And people ask me, well, why didn't you go bilateral, the first time? And I have to say, people weren't going bilateral until 2005. So, technology, like you said, has changed so much. When I was in school, we didn't have Wi-Fi. We barely, had computers, if that. Bluetooth, I mean, I know audiologists right now, they almost feel like they should be working for the Geek Squad, for Best Buy, for as much time as they spend with patients, helping them understand Bluetooth in their phones and things like that. So this topic is rapidly changing, but it's also something that I really love, and I'm always happy to stay on top of it as much as I can, as well as share information. I feel a little bit like a bridge between the professionals and the consumers. If I'm talking to professionals, I'm always like, hey, this is what we people that are deaf or hard of hearing are feeling. Then when I'm talking to consumers, I'm like, this is what all this jargon means, because it's confusing even for audiologists. So those are things that I love to do. I do have a website where I list a lot of my resources. I like to make lists and spreadsheets of things so that you can look at different products and you look at different features and see if it's something that's helpful for you. So, Michael, if you don't mind posting that, that would be great. My must-have technologies. So I was listening very hard to Baldridge and DeBellis to see what other things that I could contribute. So I agree. My advanced bionics cochlear implants are for sure like that first layer. It gives me access to sound in a variety of different ways. Some of you may be asking yourselves, well, I'm a candidate for cochlear implants, or I'm a candidate for getting hearing aids. Which one is best? And there really is no answer. It's like saying, what's the best car? There's so many choices. It depends on your lifestyle. Some people pick cochlear implants for the technology. Sometimes they pick it because they like the way that it looks. And so everyone has different priorities. And just know that you really can't go wrong. all of the cochlear implants and hearing aid companies have people that do very well, but not everybody is the same in terms of their auditory functioning. So instead of saying, well, why can't I do like that person is doing, you might look at your technology and say, wow, I've really come a long way since before I got technology. Okay, so I kind of wanted to put that out there. Um, Other things that are a must-have for me would be I don't go anywhere without my phone. And probably as a corollary to that would be my watch. On my phone, I have the power to do pretty much anything. And I, use text and email. I use the app called Caption if I want to caption phone calls. If I'm struggling with a phone call, a lot of the times I can just hold the phone up to my ear and to my T mic. I can use video relay if I want to use ASL to communicate or communicate with other deaf people. But I notice I've been using the speech to text app a lot, especially in very difficult listening situations. And I think sometimes I use it kind of maybe when I don't need it because I love showing people about it. I always love when someone says, "Oh, I didn't know about that." And just so you know, in addition to having that app on Android, if you are an iPhone user, and I've done a survey where I did informally on Facebook, do you realize it's 5-1 on average, iPhone users to Android users amongst the deaf and hard of hearing community for people that I know. So for you iPhone users, there is a feature called live captions, and you find it under the accessibility menu on your iPhone. It says live captions beta, and it's a speech to text app where you have to press the microphone and then you'll see captioning on your phone. Now it works a little bit differently, looks a little bit different than live caption for Android, but such is the nature of the beast. Looking at an iPhone screen versus an Android screen is also a little bit different. What I also like, in addition to the captioning feature of Live Transcribe, is that you have the sound notifications feature. So sometimes when I'm doing work from home, I'm sitting cochlear implants off, my phone is up, I have Live Transcribe and sound notifications on, because I want to know if my kids are walking into my room or if my timer is going off or something like that. And it's just nice to have that. I should also mention with live captions, I just saw something in the chat box. It will also caption your FaceTime calls or your Zoom calls if there's no captions turned on. The Android version will do that too. So there's a lot of similarities when you look at iPhone and when you look at Android, but that's, we don't have time to go through that all today. That's a whole other webinar that I've given. David, or Dave DeBellis, I was interested in you talking about your international travels because there are apps out there also where you can, translate. So someone could be speaking in one language and you can get text output in another language. And my favorite for that would be Microsoft Translator. I think that that's a really great app. I love the fact that you can split the screen. So if you're face to face with someone, you can talk and then they can read their output in a different language. So that one was cool. I do have an iPad and a MacBook Pro when I have to talk Apple to Apple. And that's what I do most of my work on. My preferred video conferencing platform is also Zoom, like David Beldridge mentioned. For me, the things that I like the best about Zoom is that you can multi-pin, which affects your view on your screen, or you can spotlight, which affects the view of everyone else's screen. So that's something that the host would do. I appreciate that you can take the captioning that's at the bottom of the screen and click and drag it and put it up anywhere you want on the screen. I typically like to put it at the top of the screen so it looks like I'm looking at the camera while I'm also reading the captions. I also like in meetings that you can rearrange the windows, the video windows, as long as someone is not does not have a spotlight. So, those are features. The captioning, I have to admit, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was pretty mad that it wasn't an automatic thing that you could use like on Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, or the fact that you had to have a paid version of Zoom to have that accessibility. And I applaud the advocates that were out there creating petitions, furthering the cause to kind of really challenge Zoom to think about the way that they were providing that accessibility. So that was really exciting to see. All right, what else do I like? I don't have it with me right now, but I have this Bluetooth microphone that is about the size of my pinky that I use for all of my Zoom calls that I have in my office. Right now, I'm actually in my clinic, so that's why I have headphones. You'll hear bus announcements going off here pretty soon. But that little Bluetooth microphone, when my voice is this far away from the microphone, it's going to be more clear. It's going to be more robust than me talking and it going all the way down to the microphone on my computer. And by having a really good signal, it really does give the automatic captioning a better chance. And while I'm thinking about it, we've been throwing around this terminology or this acronym AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it is one way that people describe the captioning that's automatic on Zoom. What we are offering for this webinar is CART captioning, and CART is an acronym for Computer Aided Real-Time Translation. And we have an awesome captioner, Lisa Johnston, who is listening, processing, and then typing on a stenograph the signal and providing you the most accurate kind of captioning that's out there. And there is a little bit of a delay versus CART versus AI captioning. But for people that need the absolute accuracy, I believe CART is the gold standard for that. For people that have pretty good hearing or residual hearing and just miss words here and there, some of us prefer captioning like AI captioning. And it's all about choices, right? I love having choices. Let's see, what else is on my list? I have a phone cradle that I keep by my desk and also by my bed. So if my phone vibrates, it will light up. The one by my bed has a bed shaker. I use that when I travel. I use it to be alerted if the fire alarm is going off. So, different things around my house. Don't forget about, these home systems like Alexa and Google Nest and Apple HomePods and things like that. So my smart home, we happen to use Alexa, and I love that I have Alexa to talk to turn off my lights. I have smart bulbs that will light up to different like signals or weather events or fire alarms and things like that. So that is very possible. Oh, when Amazon delivers me another, package, like my 5th one for the week, I know it because it goes to my watch and my light blinks. I will consider interpreters also accessibility assets and technology. And I'm so grateful to be able to use them on site, but also in a virtual setting like on Zoom. The last technology that I'll talk about, as an audiologist, I do have to listen to other people's hearing aids and cochlear implants and stuff like that. And the devices that have been around were ones that I could use, but I never felt that they were effective. And I was very fortunate that I just happened to find a product called an amplified listening kit. And what it does is it amplifies the sound, like pre-amplifies it before it goes to my cochlear implants. So audiologists with hearing loss, speech pathologists with audiologist parents who might have to do listening check on their kids' devices, teachers, if any of them have hearing loss, what I did, and I hope that Michael will post this in the chat, is a slide deck that I made to tell you what the options are for how to do a listening check if you have a hearing aid, if you have a cochlear implant, something like that. In terms of emerging technologies, I agree about artificial intelligence or AI getting better. I should also say other acronyms for this automated captioning is automatic captioning, automatic speech recognition, machine learning. All of those things are, kind of interchangeable. For engineers, it's probably like, oh, that's not what that means. But that's the terminology that people are using out there. Okay. So AI, even since the pandemic, has really gotten so much better. And I think it's because we have these billions of hours of Zoom and Teams calls and things like that, just feeding these speech algorithms and just getting better. I think another exciting frontier is VR, or virtual reality. An example of this would be things like the Apple Vision Pro goggles that allow you to see different things and analyze the environment. I envision a time kind of like maybe this marriage of these kind of smart glasses and these captioning glasses that make it a lot more seamless. I was first introduced to VR goggles a few years ago at a medical professionals with hearing loss conference, where there was a neurosurgeon that gave a presentation about how he used the Microsoft HoloLens to do brain surgery while also watching an interpreter and captioning. And I thought that that was fascinating. And I think, I say holograms. I mean, those of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s and think about, Princess Leia from Star Wars being projected from R2-D2, there are ways that people are projecting themselves to give keynotes where they talk in English, but the text that comes out of their mouth at that venue is in Japanese. So, the possibilities really are endless. And so, we've all been talking about Auracast, and I know that Auracast is not available yet, but it is coming. There is no doubt about that. It's all about product and people developing products. And with Auracast, there are basically two pieces, just like there is for remote microphone technology. You have to have a transmitter and you have to have a receiver. Okay, so right now, both of these products are being built. When it comes to those of us that have hearing aids and cochlear implants, the only two products right now that are Auracast ready would be the Cochlear Nucleus 8 and the Resound Nexia hearing aid. I know it's going to keep coming as companies make new products, but right now that's the only two. The other option would be just like Apple earbuds, they have that technology ready. And I know people are also thinking about some kind of intermediary accessory for people that want to listen to Auracast, but their technology is not compatible yet. Okay. So, again, showing my age, I grew up with that combination VHS and DVD player because there's no switch where overnight that technology is there. It takes kind of time for that to develop. So ways that to expand a little bit about Auracast, things that you can do could be sharing music, with multiple people. I think about my kids, how they give their one AirPod to their friends so they can listen to music at the same time. Well, with Auracast, you can both do that with both your AirPods. You can use it as an assistive listening device. So I'm thinking one-on-one when you approach like a service desk. You can choose a specific silent screen like at Buffalo Wild Wings or at the gym where, you know, the TV is turned off, even though they, you know, they play lots of music, but you can actually connect to a specific television to listen to that particular audio. You can use it in things like a museum tour for small groups. You could use it in large groups like movie theaters or live theater or house of worship. And I know that loops are also here and are available now. And all you need to have is a telecoil. But I ever so briefly saw in the chat box someone mentioning how audiologists don't put telecoils or enable telecoils in hearing aids or teach their patients about that. And I absolutely am very sad by that. And I try to encourage T-coil use, but just like, you know, having telecoil and Orcast to me is kind of like having VHS and DVD. There's going to be a time where they both coexist. And, you know, I love that we have options. You know, I still have a couple of VHS things that I kept, even though I don't even have a player for it anymore. But, you know, there will always be things that we can use that for. In terms of tech resources, I agree. Conventions are my favorite places to learn about things. HLAA is the best for me. I say how it fills my brain, and it's great for actually hands-on trying on the technologies. I love also ALDA, the Association of Late Deafened Adults, for kind of filling my heart and being around people that are late deafened like me. I've been part of TDI for a few years now, and it's helped me understand things like telecommunication and emerging technologies and the research behind it. And being an audiologist, it's funny, I don't really learn about assistive technologies so much at audiology conference, I feel, but I learned about the research behind it. Okay. Like David, I'm also involved with NTID, National Technical Institute for the Deaf. I'm a board member for them, and you know, our colleges and universities are the future. This is where things are developed. If you have relationships with any of them, definitely, you know, give them input on things. Online materials are things that I mostly access, and funny enough, I learn a lot on social media. It sends me down rabbit holes or tells me about things that I didn't know about. And you know, again, you know, just knowing people that are smarter than me, that challenge me, and teach me. I do have some take-home messages. Can I just, am I going way over time, or do I have a little bit of time, Jill?
If you could wrap it up in a minute or so, that'd be great.
I can do that. So, first take-home message, tell people what you need. Otherwise, they will make the decision for you. So know what works best for you so that you can articulate that at a venue and say, I want captioning, or I would want to use an assistive listening device. While I love technology, I also love Duff a Clock. Give yourself grace and give your ears a break. And again, there is no one best technology for every person. Try different technologies. And I guess my last point is know what the return policy is on any of these technologies as you're trialing them. So, okay, I'm done.
Okay. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Dr. Baldridge and Dave. Appreciate all the wonderful information that you shared with us. We have a lot of questions coming in. Before I get to those, you can see now that we're going to start sharing some resources on the screen. So hopefully that will answer several of the questions that came through the chat about resources that are available for you. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this webinar is being recorded, and the slides will be available on the HLA website in the near future. So if you've missed anything during the presentation today, which I know you have, we've only had an hour today, and it's going by incredibly fast with a lot of information. So please check back, and we'll have all that information available so that you can review anything that came up during the webinar today. So with that, let me go into some of the questions that have come in. And let me start, Tina, this is probably going to be for you maybe, or a cast. You know, that's come up several times here. But how do you know when it's available? Like, and how do you connect to it to be able to use it? You know, when should we start checking on our devices and everything to know that it's available?
I would ask your audiologist. Again, the only device right now that is the only cochlear implant I know right now that is compatible is the Cochlear Nucleus 8. So for everyone else, they do not have the compatible Bluetooth chip. So you'd have to upgrade your processor or use some kind of intermediary device that hopefully someone will develop. You know,
But how do you access it, like when you're out in public?
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's
Yeah.
different ways that that's going to happen. Some people can use their phone. There's a thing called an Auracast Assistant, which is basically an app that you use on your phone, and the transmitter will sell out or send out what are called advertisements saying, oh, I'm here, click on this if you want to access this. There have been talks about like taps even on device to access things like that. There may be like some kind of fob or things like that. But right now, the most common assistant right now is using your phone.
Michael, did you want to ask a question next?
Yeah, so just looking through all of the cues or questions. Thank you so much for submitting. Great questions. You know, one thing that I'm really seeing a lot is how can I find out if a place is looped or advocate for telecoil use? And same thing goes for, you know, captioning. How do I request and advocate to make sure that I have access to captioning and or looping or telecoil? Who would like to answer that question? Tina, would you mind taking that one, or David?
Yeah. I would say definitely go to the HLAA portion of Get in the Hearing Loop. I think that they have the best user-friendly resources for what is a loop, how can you advocate for it with your audiologist. Looking at, you know, there's a place where you can search for venues that have telecoils as well. So my recommendation would be to start with HLAA because in my mind, they really are the experts on hearing loops and the biggest advocates.
So I'll answer the captioning part a little bit. So I think one cool thing about an app for your phone or enabling the captioning on your iPhone is that you have total control over that. So I was at a conference in Scotland recently and was overwhelmed by the Scottish accent. But Ava did a pretty good job of, you know, transcribing in real time. More formal accommodation, like asking to have my classes captioned, I would just ask my supervisor. You can also go to human resources. And if you run into difficulty there, that's where I would turn to Jan, so that Jan can help educate you, supervisor, HR, independent of you doing all of that. But of course, the more you know, the more you can help facilitate that process. So when I need accommodation, I'm always really clear about exactly what I need, and I almost always get it because I explain it in terms of how I can do my job better, as opposed to, you know, just pushing my rights, but how I can better serve my students and serve my university if I have a certain accommodation.
Well said.
Can I add one
Yeah,
more
and
thing?
just
There was a
go ahead.
lot of chat about waking up, and I just want to share, I found the Fitbit is awesome for waking up, because it vibrates gently and it has a long battery life for like a week. So sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, that was a good addition. And just a couple of comments that came through the chat that I thought were really good to help, you know, answer the question. One person mentioned, you know, there is the ADA law that says you know, these public places have to provide accommodation and accessibility. And that certainly includes, hearing access and whatnot. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, one person chatted, was under Google Maps, it will say if a place is looped. I did not know that, but that is a really cool thing to look for under Google Maps. So thank you. And Tina, one thing that keeps coming through is both for you, David and Tina, they would love to have your contact information if you are willing to share. Maybe you can put that in the chat box because I think they loved hearing what you had to share.
I would say if you go to my website, there is a contact me part of that. So please use that to contact me.
All right, and I'll put that link in there in the chat box again for everyone.
And my email address is showing right now on the slide that's visible.
Perfect. Thank you both. And Jill, I think we may have maybe just one more minute for another question if you want to take the last question.
Sure. So I think the last question here, Dave DeBellis, you mentioned, being in noisy environments, but do you also use like some type of hearing protection when you're in noisy places but that you can still, somewhat hear other people as well?
Yeah, I think, actually, again, in these extremely noisy environments, those of us that use cochlear implants actually have somewhat of an advantage because at least my device, which is an advanced bionics device, has a decibel cutoff. And so any sound above, I think it's about 80 decibels, just gets not cut off, but it just doesn't go above that. So I can be very comfortable in an extremely loud environment without any hearing protection whatsoever, because obviously I have no hearing to protect. Yeah.
So audiologist here, I have to say though, you should still wear hearing protection, even though it's not protecting your hearing, because sound has a force. And we don't want any kind of trauma to your eardrum or to the bones or anything like that. So even if it's not protecting your hearing per se, you do want to protect like your anatomy.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Super. So thanks for those insights there. And we are now a minute or so past our scheduled time. So just wanted to conclude by thanking everybody for your attendance. Loved all the great questions and comments and sharing of your things that you have found that have worked for you through the chat. I think that's been very helpful. And like I said before, we'll have the video and the transcript and the slides from this webinar available to you on the website. So feel free to check back in and get reminded of all the things that we talked about today. So thanks for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.